Okay. Okay. Thank you, Rita. And thank you all. Thank you to our speakers today. And welcome all to this NRIN Happy Hour. This month is dedicated to gender equality in academia. My name is Claudia Pellicer. I'm a PhD candidate at the Amsterdam UMC Department of Ethics, Law and Humanities. And I'm especially happy to be here and to have been offered to chair this session. I've been all morning talking about injustices in a symposium on injustice and open science, and we have also talked about, of course, gender equality in education. So these days, it's just a lot about this for me, and I feel very motivated now. So thank you. I'm very honored, as I said, but I'm also very honored to have these two guests with us, which are Dr. Lotta Snickare, and I apologize if I pronounce your names not that great, and then our referee Lidwin Porthus. I am going to give you a brief structure, a brief note on how this session is going to be structured. And then I'm going to introduce our two speakers. And then I'm going to give the floor to the main speaker. So today's structure is going to be like this. We have a 25 minutes presentation of Lotta, who is our main speaker. And then we have a 10 minutes reply of our Linfian, who is our referee today. Then we will open the floor to the audience, so please note all your questions and keep them for the last 10 minutes of our session, and we'll finish at 5 sharp. So first of all, let me introduce our referee today, who is Linfian Porthouse, who holds degrees in French language and culture, as well as governance and organizational sciences from Utrecht University. And I also took the advantage to ask our speakers today, how did they become interested or involved in gender equality for the first time? And Lindwin mentioned her mom as this role model and as someone who taught her what is important, how women should still work and have value and fight for their own career. And in her work now, she believes that there's power in the small steps, and many small steps bring us great change and social change. And I think this is really, really true. And research into the underrepresentation of women, in words of Lindvin, remains very necessary, and we are still very far from achieving our goals, and political and social challenges that we are facing now are forcing us to the opposite direction. So especially because of this reason, I think that this happy hour is more necessary than ever, maybe. But also let me give a short biography on Lindwin. Lindwin began her career as a higher education and research advisor to foster scientific relations between France and the Netherlands. And then she joined the Dutch network of women professors, where she has served as director since 2013. And in this role, she advocates for proportional representation, which is really relevant still now, and the creation of a safe, inclusive, and equal academic environment in which women and men have the equal role in all the positions. And Lindvin is also the author of the annual Women Professors Monitor that you can consult online, and I advise you to do so because it's really interesting. Thank you, Lindvin, for being here with us. And now I'm going to move on to our main speaker, who is Lotta Snickare. And Lotta holds a docent title at the Royal Institute of Technology in Sweden and at the University of Oslo in Norway. Lotta cannot recall exactly the moment in which she realized that the world is not equal in terms of gender, but she can remember when she realized that she could work in gender equality. Back in 1993, Lotta was working as a consultant for the Swedish Association of Local Authorities when the head of employer negotiation called her and asked if her partner was in parental leave, which was actually true. And after that, another question followed, which was, then you must be interested in gender equality. And she replied, yes, to which she was herself surprised. And this is how she was first involved in a 4-year project on municipalities and gender equality that influenced her career. And I'm going to now say a bit Lotta's career. Lotta's current work focuses on the dynamics of gender and power within academic institutions and the finance sector. She's involved in national and international research initiatives in these fields. And among other things, I'm also gonna highlight her recent publication, which is the book Gender Equality in Academia: From Knowledge to Change, which she co-edited with Professor Øystein Coulter, and she will actually tell us more about it today. So without further ado, because we're here to listen to you, the floor is yours, Lotte, and I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Thank you very much for that really nice introduction. There is my sharing. So, slideshow. No. Do you see the screen now?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. Yes, thank you very much for that really nice introduction. I'm always becoming a bit embarrassed when I get such a nice introduction. But I will talk to you today about a research project that I have been working with since 2015, actually, and we will continue working with it until 2026, so that our funding stops then. It's funded by the Norwegian Research Council, and what is kind of interesting with the project is that it was the deans of the Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences at the University of Oslo that initiated the project. They were new deans, and they were all kind of interested in gender equality or gender balance. And so they were all quite of aware of the faculty not being gender balanced. Neither research areas, research groups, or academic positions, but they didn't know how come. Was the gender imbalance a result of gender inequality, or was it just, something that kind of happened? And if it was gender inequality, what could they do to get a gender balance or to improve gender equality? So I was then working at the Center for Gender Research at Oslo University. So they kind of asked if us as researchers there, if we could help them with this project. So it was really well, what could you say, kind of. The faculty was really with us in the project and really interested in the project from the beginning. And since then, we have lots of empirical material, and I absolutely won't go through everything with you today, but just to tell you about something. We did 2 surveys, one to the employees, the scientific employees, and one to master students. And we had a really great answer rate on the employee survey, 40 or 50%, depending on different positions. And the master students, we were handing out the survey when they were having lectures. So almost everyone, we had 99% of answer rate there. We also did a lot of interviews, and we have been working with action research. We have designed different measures to improve gender equality, and we have implemented them and also evaluated them. So we have really been working with change. And we thought that we needed, what should I say, a model that was really easy for this researchers not within the field of sociology or gender research or something to use this research within natural and mathematical sciences to use. So we this is a model based on June Acker's that you can find, if you want to see if an organization is gender unequal, you have to look at the structures, you have to look at the culture, you have to look at the interactions and also the identity work. So this is not an advanced theoretical model, but we choose it because it's really easy to work with and for people not within this research field. So I have structured some of the results due to this model and structure. That is about the system. If the system actively creates gender inequality, it can be deliberately, it can be unconsciously, but through framework, regulations, requirements, routines, practices. For example, when we are recruiting, how do we announce positions? How do we interview? How do we evaluate different types of competence? Or academic recognition. How are various types of publications valued? Or task distribution. Who is teaching? Who is doing research? Who is doing administrative duties? How is time allocated between this? So if just to take one of those as an example, how are tasks and working hours distributed? Who does what? Of course, there are differences by job level that researchers, for example, shouldn't teach, or postdocs should just teach 20%. But are there other differences? Are there any differences based on gender? In 2021, the Swedish Research Council did one of them had a large research project on this that they are describing in this report, how gender equal is higher education, women's and men's preconditions for conducting research. And what they found there is that men spend less time on teaching and more time on research compared to women. And that this difference, it was, of course, between research fields, because men and women, we can find them within different research fields. And a lot of women are in research fields with a lot of or with less research funding than men. But it was not just that difference, but within the same research field, within the same research group, there were differences. So women were spending less time on research than their male colleagues. And the data was controlled for positions and other factors, of course. I mean, it's the Research Council that is doing this research. So when we were looking through our data of this STEM faculty, we found almost the same differences. That at the PhD and postdoc level, there were no differences between men and women in how they reported how much time they spent on teaching or research or other tasks. But on associate professor level, women spent 24 of their working hours on research and men 35%. And on the professor's level, women spent 33% of their working hours on research and men spent 39%. And then the question is, of course, what are the consequences of this? And the Research Council, the Swedish Research Council, when they launched this report, they said that this is the main reason for the lack of gender balance within the academy. Women can be found both within research fields that are characterized by a high proportion of teaching and report within all subject areas less time for research than their male colleagues. So this is what the Swedish Research Council meant was the main reason for the lack of gender balance. And what about the University of Oslo then? One of the things that was really a problem for the deans when we started the project in 2015 was that male academics were publishing, or they were scoring higher in publication points than women at the faculty. And they had a lot of ideas on why this was happening. They thought that maybe it was because women had lower self-esteem, so they didn't submit their work. It was finished, but they didn't submit it. Or that women had more career interruptions, parental leaves, and that contributed to delays in their career. Or work-life balance, that women were having more family responsibilities and had to couldn't work more than the 37.5 hours a week that you are supposed to work in Norway, and didn't spend weekends or holidays on writing articles. Or maybe the professional networks, that women had less access to strong academic networks, and particularly international collaborations, because they thought that women were less willing to go abroad for a postdoc or have these international collaborations. So what they wanted us to actually do in the research project was to design some support measures for women, because they thought that they needed that so they could publish more, some course about how to publish. What we found in our data, though, was that the factors associated with publishing ranked by strength, you can see on this slide, is the academic position level, that affected publication, the proportion of working hours spent on research, that affected publication, and working hours per week. But there were no specific gender, or we also tried class and ethnicity. We couldn't find any specific effect of that. So academic position level, the higher up in position level, the more you publish. And that is seems kind of normal, doesn't it? That a professor is publishing more than a PhD student or a postdoc. And we know that there are more men in the higher positions than there are women. And then also proportion of working hours spent on research, it's also really, what should I say? Of course it is like that. If you spend more of your more time on research, you can also publish more. And we know that women are spending less working hours on research than the proportion of working hours on research than men. And then it's the last one, working hours per week. We actually had data on that too. That the average working hours among scientific staff, that was 46.5 hours per week. And men were working a little bit more than women, 46.8 hours, and women 46.1 hours. But the professors, they were working significantly longer hours than lower academic positions levels. So when we took that into account, there were no difference between women and men. So at the same position level, there are no significant differences in working hours between men and women. So this idea that women needed a better self-confidence or didn't know how to write articles or send them in, or didn't have time to write articles because they were collecting their children on the kindergarten. Nothing, none of nothing of this was a factor in publication. So it was really interesting when we had so much data from the faculties, we could actually move on from one research question to next, and we had the data, so we could always find, almost always find what we wanted to. So what can we do then? Yes, studies shows, other studies than ours, shows that women are asked to take on more teaching and academic housework than men. And women tend to say yes more than men, but also that women are expected to say yes more than men and are kind of punished if they don't do that. It's much more okay for a man to say no than for a woman. So to address it, we must be really mindful of how tasks are distributed and really consider who we ask to take on these additional responsibilities. It's really something that we can work with, that we can do. The next perspective on the organization, the next thing they have to look to in an organization is the organizational culture. And what the organizational culture shows is who fits in and who doesn't. And the culture is reflected in rooms, furnishing, clothing, all this physical environment, but also in rituals, shared traditions, what we are celebrating, or what we call things, narratives, storytelling, and also thoughts and ideas. What our idea of the ideal researcher, for example. So what we could see was that both on the master level and among the employees, there were huge differences between women and men when it came to how they felt that they fit in the academy, in the organization. And I can tell you that I actually didn't want to do this survey. I thought that Norway, as one of the most gender equal countries in the world, we couldn't grasp any differences with a survey, because we needed much more refined methods to find the unequal opportunities or the inequality in the organization. But I was really wrong. We found lots of things in the survey. So you can see here that 10% of the male master students and 16% of the female master students experience negative academic treatment. But when you see the negative social treatment, and it's still within the university, it's not at a bar or something somewhere else, it's at the university. It's 8% of the male students that experience negative social treatment, and 28% of the female students. And among the employees, you can see that there are men are the blue and women are the green. And the first part here shows I'm constantly assessed, scrutinized. And the next is I have to work harder than my colleagues to be seen as a real researcher. The third, professional isolation has negatively affected my career. And you can see that there are real differences between women and men in all those categories. And the last one, I think, is quite the most terrible. We are asking if they think that the culture is supportive, and it's just 16% of the men and 10% of the women that says that they think that it is a supportive organizational culture. That is not very good, actually. And if I move on to interactions, how we interact within an organization, how we treat and assess each other, all those small things, whom we talk to, collaborate with, propose for various assignments, who we want to work with, who we want to sit next to in a meeting, who we say, oh, I read the article that you wrote. It's really interesting, or something like that. And also how we communicate about each other, what we say about each other. And there is, now she's Professor Emerita, Lisa Husö from Finland. She's been working in both Sweden and Norway, and also Finland, of course, before. She has written a lot about this, that the main problem in academia, she means, is that often it's nothing that happens. It's not direct discrimination, but it is that you are excluded from things. And you need, in academia, we have this view that we are lonely wolves that can manage just by ourselves and our brilliant minds, but it's not like that. You need someone to invite you, to cite you, to refer to you, to encourage you, and so. And most of the discrimination, she means, is that you are not seen, heard, read, cited, referred to, invited, encouraged, or supported. And that this is much more difficult to detect than this overt discrimination. And also that many small differences in treatment accumulate over time and lead to significant differences. So maybe they forgot to cite you once, but when it happens 2, 3, 4, 5 times, it's a pattern, then it really has an impact. And this is a quote from one of the seminars that we had. One of the women that went to the seminar where we discussed this, she wrote a blog post afterwards. So she said this: I cannot go to the management and have a meeting because I have yet again been left out of an email, forgotten for a meeting, added last to a list, not been invited to a lunch, not asked my opinion, not invited to co-supervise a master or a PhD, left behind alone at the office on field campaigns, not included in a research project in which I clearly have expertise, not cited by my own colleagues or highly relevant publications, not even asked to co-author a paper on a project where I am the lead project expert. No, I cannot report these molehills, and yet the molehills have become a mountain. And this is a researcher that have huge research grants and is really a successful associate professor, and she still have this experience. So the last part of this model is the identity work part. That we are, of course, we are affected of what is happening around us, how people are talking about us, how people are interacting with us. So we are internalizing these external requirements and expectations. And if you look at critical sense making, it's that we are expected to act in different ways in organizations. We have different scopes of actions, and because of differences in position, gender, ethnicity, age, education, etc. And in the project, we kind of developed this model. We call it Bøygen, and that is a Norwegian figure in one of these really famous Norwegian authors that has written about Bøygen. So everyone in Norway knows about Bøygen, but Bøygen creates resistance, and Bøygen is partly invisible. So when you meet Bøygen, you don't really understand what is happening. So when you are exposed to Bergen, you doubt yourself and your own judgment. And then we mean that that is what's happening within an organization like the Academy, that the experience of small and of course large molehills, it can be hidden bias, it can be that you are being different, the only one, and different is then read inferior, or it can be micro events, maybe what doesn't happen, or it can be microaggressions, something more that you are excluded, or someone is commenting on how you dress or how you talk or something. All those small things that are invisible because they are happening in the everyday life leads to that you feel that okay, I don't fit in here. So you withdraw, or actually you are getting pushed out. So that was how we kind of described, with much more examples and details, of course, how the organization was gender unequal. And then research question number 2 was, what can we do to enhance gender equality within the organization? And we did lots of things. We had lots of workshops. I mean, we've been working there for 10 years now. So we have done lots of things. But what I will talk about is the first point here, the management or the leadership development. We worked with management training in the beginning of the project. The participants were the deans and the heads of the 9 departments. And in total 14 persons. And they met 2 + 1 + 2 days. And the starting point was how inequality is produced within the organization. We presented a lot of quantitative and qualitative studies, some from their own university, but this was really the beginning of the project. So it was more research from other universities. And we also presented gender theories, so they had this theoretical framework. And then they had to fill that with examples, personal reflections, experiences. And when that was set, so we can say that the first 4 days we were just working with that. And then the next step was the action plans, because they were managers, and managers want to act. So they were really frustrated in the beginning. They wanted to start acting immediately, but we wanted really to set that awareness of how inequality was done in their organization. So they didn't just start doing things, but could be doing the right things. And what theories, models, and concepts, what they were doing is that they provide us with a language for this new reality, for it is kind of a new reality. If you haven't seen gender inequality in the organization, it's kind of a curtain is withdrawn, and you see the organization in a new light, and then you need language to describe this, and that is what we meant that theories, models, and concepts did for this group. They could both be used to identify problems, but also to talk about them. Things that were previously invisible, they suddenly could see them. So what did the management team need in order to move from knowledge to change? They needed to be in a safe group, a safe environment. And we were lucky because the dean had been working with group dynamics and management training in this group for a year before we came there. So it was a safe group. So they trusted each other, and they dared to share experiences, and they were kind of good to listening to each other. And then because these statistics and explanations and models and so on, they had to be filled with examples. They had to kind of been moved from this abstract level. And in the beginning, it was difficult. They said, okay, this is happening in Sweden, or this is happening in Trondheim, but here in Oslo, at our faculty, we don't have that. So when we were presenting this research, it needed to be kind of filled with their own concrete examples.
Lotta, sorry, 3 more minutes.
Yes, I'm almost finished. So this is kind of from knowledge to change. You need statistics figures, you need theories, models, and concepts, but you absolutely need experiences to fill those. That will make the structures visible, and we need to see what we need to change. And to do this, you need a safe group. Or if the management team take responsibility for the description of the organization as not gender equal, and that must change, then you can start from there. Because what we found out, we started with the management team, and then we went on with seminars for all PhD supervisors, for example. And in the beginning, when we started with them actually at the same time as we started with the management training. And then it was a lot of questions in the groups about the kind of truth in the group was that the organization is gender equal. We are living in Norway. Of course, it's gender equal. And the ones in the groups that had a different opinion had kind of to prove that the organization wasn't gender equal. And then we could start discussing what to do. But when the management team went and said that the organization is gender unequal and we have to work with this, then the discourse in the organization changed. So we could start in the seminar groups now, we could start from that description that the organization is not gender equal. So let's talk about what we could do. So it was much easier to work then. So from knowledge to change, that the management much engage in sense giving, take responsibility for recognizing the organization as unequal, and acknowledge that this is a situation that must change. And the organization must engage in sense making. Be curious as researchers within a different field that is their normal research field, but approach a problem with the same mindset. What is happening here? How can I know more about this? Conduct observations to understand inequalities. Where is it happening? What can I do? And then start taking action. Do things, small things, but in their everyday life. Yes, that was everything that I had